to attach different feelings to how men are treated and how women are treated. And that's just how it is. Honestly, men are taught to never shed any tears. They say what bemensu, show no emotion, and then when you grow up and then they expect you to be able to feel things. You know, it doesn't work that way. Things have to change from infancy. We have to train up people to show emotions, speak when need be, so then solutions can be meted out too. Does it make sense? Good. So let me introduce the founder and the CEO, Mr. Richard Xiao.
There are so many people that have experienced this, and you know, the way our society is structured, we are told not to give voice to certain issues, so they would rather be silent about it, they would not share it. But I'm glad that there's a guy amongst us right now that is brave enough to give voice to this issue, not just because he wants to talk, but because he wants to be a reflection of someone's story through him. And that is so empowering, that a lot of people go through things, and sometimes just by being a reflection of their story, it's super empowering and does a lot of things in their lives. So I'd like to welcome our brother. He's a voice. He's doing amazing. A lot of people know him to be very bubbly and exciting at every event, hangouts that we organize. He's in the person of VOIICE, JJ.
So the whole thing started one Friday evening after school. I went for classes at this teacher's place and it rained. My dad he was into building and construction, so he was always traveling. My mom had this petty shop she was managing, and so they had to call my mom. My mom was like, oh, when the rain is like on a low, she would come pick me or probably send someone to come pick me. So I could wait till then. After the classes, I was asked if I was hungry, and I was like, no, because I don't eat people's food outside. That was how my parents brought us up. But at a point, Mom wasn't showing up, no one was showing up. I started feeling hungry, so I was like, I wanted a biscuit and a drink. And I was like, oh, okay, what biscuit? I mentioned what drink I did, and he got it for me. And after I had the biscuit and the drink, then he was like, oh, why don't you take off your uniform? I was like, no, I'm fine, I'll wait for mommy. Take your bath. No, I'm fine, I'm feeling good, I'll wait for mommy. Then it kept on, like, why don't you do this, then I reject. Why don't you do that, then I reject. Before I could realize anything that was happening, I started having this funny touch around me, and being a small boy and having somebody probably like Richard as your teacher, you definitely cannot fight him. You can't do anything. Having pull, like it was wild. Tore my uniform, and it happened. One thing she didn't notice was my walking was funny. For like 3 weeks, I couldn't sit. I got to school, I was always standing. Teachers were complaining. Sit, I want to stand. Sit, I want to stand. So one day, I went to school Monday morning. My uniform was a white shorts on, I think it was a red or a burgundy shirt. And we had this, we normally have this Monday morning worship, and I sat, I got up, I felt like pain, I got up, and then my chair was stained with blood. It was a friend who was sitting next to me, was like, Initially, they were making mockery of it because they're like, a guy menstruating. Everybody laughed about it. So it became like around that side, and just had to rush in what was going on. And they said I was menstruating. So they had to rush me to the washroom and ask, was I okay? That was when I finally opened up. It's like, this was what happened. So I don't know who.
So I think for the most part, what I want to know from your story is, how do you think this experience has affected you?
Okay, so psychologically it has. I started having fear for men, especially. At a point, I couldn't even look at my father's face. Because when I look at my father's face, all I see were those two people. And it became a problem. And the funny part was where I got an STI, not HIV, though I got an STI as young as that age. And I grew lean.
How old was that?
I was 10, 8 and 10. Between the ages of 8 and 10. It happened twice. My parents had to sneak me out at 4 a.m. to the hospital and sneak me back in at 11 p.m. to the house because we're living in an apartment. I had to go to school.
Why were these sneaking in?
I was lean, I was looking like someone who had contacted HIV and AIDS. You could see, naturally I have a big head, sorry. so I was looking all lanky with this big head, and then I wear clothes, I look like, the clothes were rather, exactly.
So they were embarrassed.
Exactly. My mom would sit by me, by my bedside. We're living in a 4-bedroom apartment. And we'll cry the whole night till 6:30 a.m. Till 6:30 a.m. and would get me ready for school. I would come home and she's still crying. Psychologically affected because I was asked not to make friends. I go to school. I leave school at 12 because I had a session, therapy. I got to know what therapy was as early as that age. And the PTSD was even massive when I was young. It was when I started growing up, I started experiencing life, meeting people. At a point, I wanted to open up about it, and my mom was like, no. She reported to my dad. My dad was like, if you do, I disown you. Because he felt, my dad is a staunch Christian and an elder in the church. My mom was a deaconess.
There's a part of what you were saying that really struck me. The fact that your family felt like it was kind of your fault. They were blaming you for something that was supposed to be right. So this is actually, this is not a surprising thing, because a lot of people tend to blame, for some reason it makes sense to people to blame the victims instead of blaming the perpetrators. So for some reason they find, when you complain of rape, that you've been raped, the reasonable thing that they can think to ask is a question like, what were you wearing? Where were you? What did you do? How did it happen? And these questions are usually directed to the victim. It's never it's hardly about the person. Now it's about the victim, which is something that we need to speak on and eradicate. So we basically create awareness on unspoken issues. We are trying to empower young people into owning their voices in spaces, and we run a foundation called the VOIICE Foundation, which fights against gender-based violence and its related mental health issues through awareness creation and support.